Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Music Scene Investigation, where we gather every Sunday afternoon to do something that no one else on the web does. What we do is we gather here to review independent music from anywhere in the world. If you're an indie artist out there and want to get your music reviewed by our panel of experts, very easy to do. All you have to do is go to musicsceneinvestigation.com, hit the submit a song button, and submit your music there. You can sign up, submit your music, very easy to do. We ask that it's original, under 5 minutes, and radio friendly. That means no foul language and all that good stuff. But you can get away with a little, but not a lot. Kind of like Brill Cream. It all works very well that way, and we're happy to review your music every week. Now, the way we do it is we select 3 songs out of those that have been randomly or those that have been submitted to us, and we play them for our panelists, our guest panelists, and our in-house panelists. Our in-house panelists are with us each and every week. They are guys that have been in the music industry for a while, as well as our guest panelist as well, all from the music industry. Our first guest panelist, let's introduce them, all the way from New York City, is Tom Chianti, in a little bit different venue today than what he normally is. Tom, how are you? Welcome.
Well, welcome to the Cubette.
The Cubette, huh?
Yeah, well, you bet. It's not the Cube.
Well, I understand you're going through a little network issue over at the Cube, and you've gone to your undisclosed location and are currently broadcasting from there.
I'm in the safe room.
There you go. That's one way of looking at it. Well, we're glad you're okay. I understand also that you have a lot of trains come by the undisclosed safe house.
Those aren't trains. Those are actually F-14 fighters. They dogfight right outside my window.
Oh, so you're in Miramar, Florida.
Yeah, right?
Exactly. Well, it's not an undisclosed location anymore. If you live near Miramar, Florida, and want Tom's autograph, just ask one of the top guns to get it for you.
There you go.
All right, Tom. Thanks for being here. Hope your network connectivity at the Cube gets taken care of. Our second guest panelist, or our second in-house panelist, I should say, is from London, England, and he swims to the United States every week to do this show. Ian Husbands. Ian, how are you?
My shoulders are aching a little bit this week. It was a bit of the waves, they were harsh.
Good thing about it is, though, the hairdryer at the hotel works.
It does, yeah, it works fine. So I'm all brushed and ready to go.
Well, good. Glad to hear that. What's your shirt say, by the way?
It says, Hayes, wake up and smell the coffee. Now, for those of you who don't know where Hayes is, it's a little backwater near London. If the world had an enema, it would probably end there. And basically Nestle are there. Nestle make chocolate and coffee. And if in Hayes, if you wake up and you can smell coffee in the air, you know it's going to rain.
And if you smell coffee in the air,
you know it's going to rain.
And wait, what if you smell chocolate in the air then?
You don't really smell the chocolate. It's mainly the coffee they make in Hayes.
Have they ever had a chocolate spill as they're trying to, take chocolate out of the factory or anything?
Yeah, the locals thought they won the lottery.
I would imagine.
So that was good. But, I mean, obviously, as I said, Hayes would be the enema of the world. So there's the Hayes wake up and smell the coffee, which is the reference to Nestle, and then the irony of get the hell out of there.
Gotcha. Appreciate you being here, Ian, as always. Our guest panelist today comes, again, from over across the pond. He didn't swim here, however, but he has joined us via Skype, and we're happy to have him. He's been on the show before. The first time he was on the show was way back in August of 2011, and he's a very busy man. As you can, as we go through part of his profile here, you'll find out just how busy this guy's been. Took up playing guitar in the late 70s. Okay, everybody plays guitar. That's true. I try. I can't play it very well. I'm sucking at guitar, but our guest panelist does not. He does this for a living, which is great. He started a band called The Price. In fact, he started a bunch of bands here. And Leigh, I want to ask you about this. Our guest panelist today is Leigh Heggarty. Leigh, welcome back to the show. Like I say, you're a busy.
Hi, everybody. Hello.
You're a busy man. How many bands have you started over the years?
Actually started myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually quite a good question. That's a lot of.
I mean, I'm looking through the profile here.
Levels. Yeah, sure. That's, we were talking about this the other day. It's interesting when I say I started in the '70s and I was playing throughout the '80s doing original music, I suppose. And in those days, I think it's quite interesting when you talk to people who are learning guitar now. They learn to play, and I think they seem to have a view that they can go out and be a musician. They can go and play other people's music, maybe play their own as well. I think when I started, there was this idea that you could form a band and do your own music, and I think came out of the punk thing a bit, but where you would like make your own record or something. That was quite a reasonable thing to do. So I had the mentality that you started your own thing each time. I now realise, of course, all my contemporaries went off and made much more money and much better living than I did by playing other people's songs in restaurants and, in some cases, in some very big venues. But that was what I did. So I've had about 5 or 6 things doing my own music to varying degrees of success. The Price actually put a couple of records out and actually reformed now and still have an audience. Not the biggest audience in the world, you know. But,
Well, I guess, and that brings up a good question. Now, as a musician, you want an audience, obviously.
sure.
Does it matter whether it's a big audience, small audience? I mean, I guess from a money perspective, bigger audiences are better. But what about a personal satisfaction perspective?
That's a very interesting question. If you use the Price as an example, what I realise now with a bit of hindsight, but I kind of knew at the time, was that although we weren't a big group, we did everything, or we did the things that big groups did. We made records, we did tours, we did interviews, etc., etc. They were just a lot smaller and a lot more kind of basic, And we supported bands that went on to do some quite big things. We supported bands that at the time were big. We did some touring and things like that. We also watched people who we met on the circuit sort of accelerate past us, and they went on to do other things. But we were at the same time doing what we were doing, and I think it's interesting because you're in a bit of a bubble. I think if you did it how we did, which was we tried to be dedicated to it, and we tried to play as best we could and write all our own music and all that kind of thing. We were very kind of insular, I suppose was the word, which I suppose I think you have to be if you're trying to do that.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of setbacks. You get a lot of put downs. You get a lot of people sneering at you and whatever. That's
the whole deal with punk rock, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and I thought we were a good group. We were sort of saying, "Hey, listen to our band; it's great," and everyone going, "Oh yeah, but it doesn't really sound much like, I don't know, who was a big band at the time, Simple Minds or something." Of course it didn't. We weren't trying to be them. We were trying to do what we were doing.
And now, again, that brings up a good question, or at least from my mind, a question that I hope is good. You don't necessarily want to sound like everybody else. Every band wants to have their own unique sound. Of your bands that you've been in, again, we mentioned The Price, and there are some others here as well. The Flame, I see. Gosh, I mean, I could go down this list.
There's a lot. Yeah. There's quite a few.
How different were
The Flame.
how different were each of the sounds of each of these bands?
That's an interesting point. If we use those 2 bands as an example, The Price were, I suppose now would be called an indie band, or we weren't exactly a punk band in the sense that we had that sort of attitude, but we were quite sort of indie. We were around at the same time with people like I remember the Stone Roses and hearing She Bangs the Drums and thinking, I really wish we'd done that. That was a great sounding record. And that was the type of thing that I really liked at the time. But I also liked the punk bands from earlier, so we were a bit sort of tougher sounding than that, I think. The Flame were much more of a kind of a rock band. That was the thing I did next. My circumstances changed a bit, which I won't bore you with, but I ended up writing a very different set of songs there, and it was a very interesting thing to do.
Now, Ian says he's played with the Flame. Ian, you want to tell us a bit about that? One of the two of you.
Well, that's how Lee and I met. Lee and I met, basically, we turned up for a gig at a venue called the Anglers Retreat to find out that we'd been double booked, and there we were, stood in a car park at this pub with a guy called Paul who was lending us a PA, or we were hiring his PA, going, well, I want me cash either way here, lads. So we basically went to the pub up the road and basically said, look, 2 bands, PA, loads of people coming to see us, no venue, can we play? And they put us on, and that led on to a string of gigs with my band Frequency and the Flame. We played festivals together, didn't we? Some good lovely stuff.
Yeah, we did.
And had lots of good times.
That's interesting you've mentioned that incident, because again, without sounding too philosophical about this, that to me is punk rock. They won't let you play there, so you go and play somewhere else. We had that attitude of just let's go and do it.
Any port in a storm.
I still have that. Yeah, I still try and have that attitude. You know, every gig is something to be enjoyed, and it doesn't matter whether you're lucky enough to play a big gig or whatever, or the next one's at a small pub. You just get out and play. You know.
Now,
Music is good. Music is good, my friends.
now we talk about bands that you started and were a part of from the beginning. But you also joined other bands that were started by other people. Dave Finnegan's The
Sure.
Commitments, one
Yep.
of the ones that show up on the thing here. Now you say the bands you start, you all want to start playing your original stuff. But what about a band
Sure.
like The Commitments?
Right.
That's mostly a cover kind of band. That you're looking
Yeah,
at there.
sure.
So how is that different? How is the creative process different between the two?
The Commitments was a funny one. We've all heard of the film, The Commitments. It was a huge film about 20 or so years ago, I think. Dave played Mick Wallace in the film, the mad drummer who beats everyone up, if you've seen the film. And the band played a few shows, and then some of them quit, and then they carried on as I think they called themselves the Stars from The Commitments. Eventually, Dave wanted to do his own thing. Through a twist of fate, I got involved, and I found myself playing some great venues, fabulous places, but playing all the old Stax and some of the Motown stuff with a band with a horn section and all this sort of stuff, which I'd never done before. I played in small rock and roll bands, you know, and we were playing these big shows in Europe and went to Ireland and all this sort of stuff. It was terrific. The creative process, I was a big fan of Steve Cropper's guitar playing, for example, and I took it upon myself to really kind of study it and try to play like him. So kind of before all of this, I really liked his style of playing. So when it came to approaching the cover versions, I tried to get them accurate, but also if we were extending a song for a solo or something like that, I tried to play in the same style. So I tried not to turn it into a kind of note fest. If someone else was playing a solo, you stay nice and economical behind them and give them the space to play. When you get your chance, then you have a little go and you can see what you can do. But I try to sort of look at it in terms of playing in the band and playing the music as a whole.
Now, how important?
Which is really interesting.
Now, how important is it when you're doing something like Dave Finnegan's The Commitments? Some of these other cover bands you've been involved with, like the Chicago Blues Brothers, the
Yep.
Sex Pistol Experience, and so forth.
Yep.
You say you play in the style of. How important is
Yeah.
that, and how do you manage that? What's
you
that
do?
process?
That's another really good question. You don't get something much different than a Blues Brothers theatre show or a Sex Pistols tribute band. Again, first of all, to me, it's all music. It's all music that I enjoyed and all music that I wanted to play well. So I started with that idea. You go in with it and you take it as something that you want to get something out of, and you want the people that have come along. If you come along to watch a Pistols tribute band, you want something that reflects that. You want some raw rock and roll. A very different style of playing. So what I try to do with each of those, to use those two as an example, as I say, is look at the original recordings closely, work out how they're played, look at the sequences, and then start looking at the sound. Look at the kind of equipment that you'd need to produce the sound. It's a very different guitar sound on, say, Hard to Handle by Otis Redding or God Save the Queen by the Sex Pistols. But so if you're looking at those as two separate songs with two very different bands, I find I try to approach them differently. I look at the sort of equipment I'm using, look at the guitar I'm using, the sound, get the sound right, and that in itself again is an interesting process for me. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy finding out about things like that.
Now, I know that today you're involved in another different band. Looking
Yeah.
at your blog over at your website, and we'll discuss that. But looking at that, now you're involved with Department S. How'd that come
Department
about?
S. Good question. Department S were a band in the late 70s, early 80s over here. They had a very big hit single with a song called Is Vic There? A really good kind of post-punk kind of pop song. And it turns up on a lot of those kind of compilation albums, the best punk album ever type compilation albums. They split up, I think from talking to them, it all got a bit big a bit too quickly, and they eventually sort of split up a couple of years later. Having done some really good gigs, they were very in with Paul Weller of The Jam. They did a lot of radio sessions for John Peel, who was a big fan. Well, these days they're invited to do a reform. They did a few shows, and I know a guy called Sam, who is their guitar player, Sam Burnett, who's their sort of new guitarist. He's only been there a few years. The rest of the band now are all original members or people who have played with the band at some point. So they've got the original guitarist and drummer there. The original singer, unfortunately, died. So he has been replaced, for want of a better term. Eddie, who sings now, is the original keyboard player.
Right.
And the guy that replaced him on keyboards now plays bass for them. So it's a bit of a soap opera, kind of cool. So it's a 5-piece band. Sam contacted me when their bass player became unavailable for a couple of gigs and asked me if I'd like to play bass for them. And you don't get asked by Department S to play bass every day of your life, so I thought, yes, we'll do that one.
Oh, absolutely.
I was very, very pleased to be asked. And I've played bass a little bit in bands before, mostly helping friends out. Similar type of thing. I've never gone out and formed something with myself playing bass in it, but I've helped other bands out. I've played in bands. I played in the Irish band Neck, and their bass player couldn't make it one gig. I can't remember if he couldn't make it or he was ill, but anyway, there was only me there, so I played bass that night. So I have done it a fair bit in public, as it were, as well as owning one at home that I use on home recordings, and also just practicing. I enjoy playing.
Right now, so now your stint with Department S. What are you going to do with them? What's it entail?
Yep.
Where are we going here?
Where are we going? Well, Good Friday, we played in Belgium at the Rewind Festival in Ghent, which was really good fun. Great gig, great to go out to Belgium. I was like, it's one of the best things about this job is you're lucky enough to go to places like that, and go over there and have a look around. So we played that. That was really good fun. I'm playing a festival with them at Minehead at the end of the month. I think we're on the same night as Eddie and the Hot Rods and a couple of other bands from that time. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Let's say their bass players unavailable.
Aren't you playing with Florence and the Machine over in Spain at some festival at some point in time? Talking about put downs, choosing your gigs right, etc. Aren't you playing that festival?
Ian, I'm really glad you've asked that question, because you probably know that I'm not. I was also asked to play at the Benekison Festival in Spain, supporting Florence and the Machine, the Stone Roses and Noel Gallagher. However, I have a prior engagement that night in Loughborough in the Midlands of England. I'm playing at a theatre show called Cool Britannia, which is about to start throughout May, June and July here, which is the story of British rock music. Rather pretentiously, it's the story of British rock music. And so I have a prior engagement in the Midlands of England that night, so I cannot go and play with Florence and the Machine, for want of a better term. No. I'm sure you find that very amusing, Ian. Over to you.
Before we get into what we're here for, I do have one last question.
Yes.
Now, we've talked about the different styles of music, the different styles of play, and original music versus cover music. Yeah. But with your wide career here, I mean, you've got so many different areas of experience. Let's contrast and compare those types with theater. I mean, totally different atmosphere, totally different genre, even. If you really want to talk about it, how do you compare and contrast all those?
Yeah, good question. Well, let's use the Sex Pistols experience and the Chicago Blues Brothers example we used a moment ago. The Chicago Blues Brothers shows are mostly in, as you say, theatre land in Britain, I suppose. We've done a fair few of the theatres. I must try and count them all up one day in Britain. Mostly one-night shows at theatres, or we've done a week at a theatre in Windsor, things like that. It's a much more formal experience to, for example, playing at the 100 Club or something like that, which is a totally different ballgame. The Pistols band I've played mostly in small venues with 200 very excitable people watching you, and most of them trying to throw things at you and behaving as if you're the real band, which I find extraordinary. I think whatever one thinks of tribute bands, I know they do split the jury a little bit. It's interesting that if you get a good one, the audience starts to behave as if it's the actual band on stage, which I find extraordinary. They start kind of, in the case of the Pistols, they're sort of throwing and yelling abuse at us. In the case of the Blues Brothers shows, they sort of behave as if it's some kind of soul review, and it's great. There's lots of dancing, lots of excitement. It's a very interesting. I'm sure somebody will write a PhD about this, maybe even me. I don't know, but it's kind of interesting observing it.
It really is, and I wish we had more time to sit and talk about it. And I think what we should do is, if we get the opportunity, I'd like to schedule with you a time where we can sit and discuss this in depth, because it really is fascinating. But right now, guys, we do have a job to do. As I said at the top of the program, we're here to review some great music by independent artists that they submit to us just for that purpose. So let's say we go ahead and get down to that and take a listen to our first song on today's Music Scene Investigation. So here we go. Here's song number 1 on today's MSI.
Thought I saw your face through a rain-covered window as you looked back at me. It ain't the first time that it's happened before when my heart was young and free. Didn't know love could hurt, but it learned real fast. Back when I was just a kid. So why don't you go on and break my heart like KatyDid? Katy did me wrong. Katy didn't stay. Katy didn't say a word when she walked away. So why don't you go on and break my heart like KatyDid? Thought I saw your face through a rain-covered window as you looked back at me. Why don't you go on and break my heart like KatyDid? Katy did me wrong. Katy didn't stay. Katy didn't say a word when she walked away. So why don't you go on and break my heart like KatyDid? Like Katy.
There you have song number one on today's MSI, and I want to go over to our panelist, Ian, to find out what he thought of it. Ian, song number one?
Yeah, before I start, I just want to apologise. I can't get the chat up this week, so that's why I'm not in there making stupid remarks like usual. On the song, I found the overall volume level on this was very low. I've got my settings set here. I know sort of roughly how high a volume a good track's going to come in at, and I was find ways to turn this up. And it was so much reverb in that mix. Everything was just pushed back and it was just full of space. The mix was all over the place, to be honest. The bass was too loud in places. It sounded like it'd been recorded live in a bathroom or somewhere with loads of tiles or something like that. some of the instrumentation, the panning was all over the place. Like the piano was way over in my right ear, but there was a guitar dead center which was just disrupting everything. They didn't seem to be used as sort of stereo. It was all sort of mono, sort of placed randomly through the stereo field. So that didn't gel for me at all. I mean, it's a cliche blues track. The guy sings very bluesy. Sounds like he's been through the mill a little bit and lived his life, which is cool. And overall, the performances seemed to be there, but it was just all lost in that mush of reverb and bad mixing. I mean, it's your general boy meets girl, girl breaks boy's heart, boys write blues song to get off girl off his mind sort of thing. Yeah, it didn't really go anywhere. Great guitar performances, like the little solos, good feel, but it just sort of was the same all the way through. And that mix, it really, really sort of crushed it for me because you couldn't make out exactly what was going on because it was just all so messy.
All right, I appreciate that, Ian. Thank you. And Tom, what did you think, sir, on song number one?
Well, I agree with a lot of things that Ian had said. One of the things, besides the low volume, was that it was warm and lacking clarity, probably due to the amount of reverb and whatever. And I kept losing the vocal. He had a very interesting Dr. John type of voice, and it does sound like a live take. It sounds like, he would look down to play his guitar and go off mic. It was well played. It's definitely like an album track. Everybody had their own little solo and stuff. The mix is not good at all, but it would be the type of bar band that I would go to see, and probably have a good night and listening to some good blues. They played well. It just needed a little bit more organization, better mixing, and just not all that overrun and bleed, I could call the chords sometimes where you play them like the shmush chords. This was like a shmush mix.
Okay, a smush mix. I appreciate that, Tom. Thank you. And let's go to Leigh, find out what he thought. Leigh, what do you think of song number one?
Okay. To echo my friend's comments, the first thing I wrote down on my scribbly bit of paper, which is very scribbly today, were the words lo-fi. It did have a very kind of, the lads pointed out the reverb there. It had a very kind of mushy sound to it, and that word's been used as well. I actually liked the feel of the overall sort of performance of it. The guitar, to talk about that for a second, I liked the fact that it wasn't too... I don't like to say polished, that's not quite the right word. There was a few plectrum noises in there, there's a few squeaks, there was a couple of moments where perhaps some people would have said I need to record that again, or I'd like that to be a bit tighter, or I'd like that. But I liked the fact that it had a bit of heart about it. And going back to what we were saying earlier about soul music, that's interesting. That's something that's missing, I think, a lot today. I know I sound very old saying that, but I liked the fact that it was that there was it had a bit of grit to it, a bit of heart to it. And the same thing for the vocals. You mentioned Dr. John. It is that kind of lazy anger that's in there somewhere, which I thought was great. The song itself, I thought the parts were a bit long in places. The verse kind of went on a bit, and then it kind of meandered a bit in the middle there. But that, I suppose, maybe a producer would sort that out. Maybe the band themselves would go back and rethink the song. I don't know. The non-12 bar blues is always an odd one, isn't it? Because it is that kind of minor key feel that so many people do. I think it could turn out in the future. I don't know whether they re-record it or what happens. I think that could make a good recording. As I say, I like the roughness of it. Yeah.
All right.
Good one. Yeah, we like that.
All right. Appreciate that, Leigh. Thank you. And let me introduce the tune to everyone. The name of that track is called KatyDid, and it's by S-Word 399, S-Word 399 with KatyDid. And we appreciate the fact that they submitted that into Music Scene Investigation. Just a word to everyone out there. Apparently, the chat is having some problems loading, and we apologize for that, although we have no control over it. We do want to let you know that there is a problem out there. So if you're able to see everything, great. If you're unable to do the chat, well, sit back and enjoy some great music as we go ahead and take a listen to song number 2. Gentlemen, let's do it.
Close my eyes to this gorgeous machine, then wonder why I blindly make my way, crashing into other lives who don't know me too. If I can't be seen, I must be truly alone. Then came a flash as you push the dark away. Feel my pupils raise. A frozen moment, time will chase until we touch and hit the flash. Flash, 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 light up my city of glass. This city of glass. Hold this glow in the night where I'll be. Handsome and so strong, just as long as I don't break. So beautiful, the shattered remains of all the people I have been. In the dark, it's much more easy for me to not remember them. Oh, but you came through as you push the
Song number 2 there on today's MSI. Let's go ahead and go to Tom this time around and find out what he thought of the track. Tom, song number 2?
Yeah, nicely produced. A lot of interesting things going on. Would have liked to have the pizzicato strings a little less prominent. They were far too busy in places and constantly playing. Yeah, well, then another album track. I don't see this as being a single. It's a little too long. But the parts were interesting. Held my interest top to bottom. The mix could have been better. Could have been a little bit more punchy, a little bit clearer. But, the style of this type of music calls for lots of delays and stuff, and that dulls things down. But overall, I liked it, but definitely not a single, and a good vocal performance, and that's about it.
All right. I appreciate that, Tom. Thank you so much. Let's find out what Leigh thought about this one. Leigh, what do you think of song number 2?
Okay, not normally a style of music that I spend a lot of time listening to, so apologies if I come out with even more nonsense than usual. However, I found it a very interesting 4.5 minutes. I thought the intro was a bit too long. I seem to be always saying things like that, but I thought the vocals should have come in earlier. When they did come in, I thought the singing was great, a good sort of pop voice. I liked the sound of the vocal, and I felt that was used well. The harmonies on odd words were good. I liked the way that the scanning of the vocal changed in the middle 8 quite dramatically. I like it. I was thinking, listening to it, so how's he going to? Where are they going to go from here? And the vocal that changed quite radically, and I liked that as a bit of songwriting. I thought that was a nice moment. Lots of sounds. Yeah, the mix was a bit strange. As I say, those kind of pizzicato strings, as Tom said, I felt they were over. When they first came in, it was great. They could have dropped back then for me because you kind of knew what they were going to do, and I think that they could have still been lower in the mix. You'd have known they were there. Guitar-wise, it's a splendidly mad guitar sound with that kind of auto panning that runs backwards and forwards, and it's quite fun when they first do it. But 3.5 minutes in, you're starting to get cross-eyed. I certainly was. A little bit annoying, but I could see where it was going. It was kind of fun that it was on there. As I say, brilliantly mad guitar sound. When it did come in about best part of 2 minutes in, it was a nice moment. Interesting track. Yeah, not album track or whatever, definitely. But I think anybody that rhymes flash with glass, as we say in the south of England, is all right by me. So, all good stuff.
All right. I appreciate that, Leigh. Thank you. And Ian, what are your thoughts on this track?
You know what? I'm a big fan of Chris Cornell, who was the lead singer in Audio Slave and Soundgarden. And the last album he done was an album called Scream. And it was produced by a guy called Timbaland, who's produced for loads of top acts. And I went into this album very intrepidly thinking, it's Chris Cornell, it's one of my favourite artists, it's going to be a great album. And you could hear the great song in there, but I didn't agree with a single production technique used on that album. It just didn't suit the music. It didn't suit the voice. And this is how this track left me feeling. It was like I was listening to a Chris Cornell track that had been produced by Timbaland, and that's not what I wanted to hear. It is very well done. Don't get me wrong. It's a well-written song. The way it has been produced is very well done in its own right. I just didn't get on with it. I think there is a much better live-based song with live drums, guitars, proper bass lines going on, and not all these pizzicato strings there. And that song would stand up a lot better on its own in a live environment rather than all the program stuff going on. It was very well done, the way it was done, but it wasn't what I wanted to hear from that song. So it kind of left me feeling that great vocal performance, really well written track. I agree with Tom. It's a strong album track. It might even make it as a club track the way it's produced. Actually, as a single, I think. But it just left me feeling a bit cold the way it was produced. It did have a strong sonic palette. The vocals were good. I wanted to hear more of them guitars coming in. The guitar sound was nice. And I thought, any minute now, this song's going to really kick up a gear into a sort of a rock electronica sort of thing. And it just didn't go there. And I wanted it to really badly. Too many effects on the vocals. Again, it's so overdone these days. That guy obviously had a good voice. I wanted to hear his voice. And I agree with Leigh. The intro was far too long. Cut that in half, bring that vocal in a lot sooner, because it left me guessing too much. I was like, where's this going? What's this going to do? And when I started thinking that, I realised that was too long. And the vocal kicked in. It was a pleasant surprise, but then went in a total direction I didn't want it to go. So that's where I'm at with that. It's a good song, just not the production I want to hear.
All right, I appreciate that, Ian. Thank you very much. To introduce that track, let's see here. That track is called City of Glass by KST1. KST1. It's always the names that people use when they sign up for websites that throw me for a loop. But that, it's not my choice. They make the choice when they sign up, and that's perfectly fine. So, gentlemen, we have one other track to go ahead and listen to. Before we do that, I do want to remind everybody to take a listen to Butterflies Radio on Tuesday night, their Twitter Tuesday live show. They have a past Song of the Week artist from MSI on there. Jamie Alamorand is going to be their guest this next week on Butterflies Radio Twitter Tuesday Live. Just head over to butterfliesradio.com and tell them that the MSI crew sent you. They'll love that. And tell them Tom is wearing spandex, too. So they love that as well. So, again, the third song, gentlemen. So if you're ready for that, we'll go ahead and play that for us now. And here we go with song number 3 on today's MSI. Oop, let me push the right button, for crying out loud.
Shades of vibrant gray warm to silent clocks, capturing the tick with coils of timeless measure. Rust of afternoon's armor dissolves with a spell of mournfulness. Undressed, sentient stigma keeps vigil under delicate overcast. Hold fast to stealth amid the swarm. The venom of imagined sting, decanted through skin, manifests in cruel drip. The foul turbulence of vacancy with its virulent broadcast of cliche dejection, fabricate complexity beneath the yolk fibers of panic. Suspicion of swarming intents, colored with cloaked appetite, stained the vestments of sound aspiration and desolation. Antibiotic solvents race to shield the muse's radical blood. Flooding eternal void with cold humors of cosmic sacred, magic flirts with oblivion through veil of trickery. Her ornamented breath permeates the frozen skin with invading explosions of current and supernova motion. Scrolls of deceit from batting eyes, chaotic flow of main mirrors the void. Radical blood. Radical Blood.
And there you have song number 3 on today's MSI. And we'll go straight to Leigh on this one, find out what he thought. Leigh?
Well, I think the first thing I said with the last one was I don't normally listen to this type of music. Well, this one kind of is off the Richter scale in the I don't normally listen to this type of music stage of things. However, the sound on the track, compared to the last one, I thought the sound of it suited what was going on better. I was thinking about Ian's comments where he said that the second song was an interesting song, but the treatment of it with all the synths and things was inappropriate, and that was a really good observation. In this case, I think the atmosphere that it created was appropriate for what was going on. The spoken word vocals had a kind of flanging effect or something like that on it, and there was some panning going on and God knows what. It took me about 2 or 3 lines before I could kind of the oral equivalent of get my eye in, I suppose it's get my ear in, and work out what was being said a bit. The kind of cut up vocals type of thing, or the kind of mixture of words, I quite like that. It's quite an interesting thing. By the time the stutter vocal bit in the middle came in, that was nicely unexpected, and that was good. Then comes the mad guitar, and there's always room for some mad guitar in the world as well, we know. I've maybe overdone a little bit in this, but kind of fun. But I think by then, the whole thing was going on a little bit too long again. I like the kind of atmosphere thing, the bit where it dropped out at the end and there was the drums and the kind of slightly sort of incomprehensible vocals, or incomprehensible to my ears anyway. Lots going on. The overall effect, in a way I'd like to hear it again, and in another way I wouldn't.
Okay.
So, not really aimed at me, but things going on there.
All right, fair enough. I appreciate that, Leigh. Thank you. And let's find out what Ian thought. Ian, your thoughts on number 3?
Firstly, I thought this song fitted the backing video you were playing really well.
I'll agree with that. I'll agree with that.
And I think it was quite dirty and sleazy, and I like it. It started off really, really well. As Leigh was saying, it's got a real sort of dirty groove to it. It's the mix across the board is generally okay, quite strong. Then that spoken word came in, which was kind of nice, but it was too low in the mix. Again, I couldn't get my ear in, as it were, to hear what she was saying. When I did hear the odd line that was coming through nicely, great use of the English language, some great words in there. But I couldn't put together what it all meant because I kept losing it and couldn't understand what she was saying all the time. So yeah, maybe overdone on the effects, not loud enough in the mix from that point of view. It was kind of like Portishead doing the spoken word, really. I think it had that sort of vibe to it. But then, as Leigh said, the mad guitar came in, which was great. Always room for a bit of mad guitar and mad guitarists. Thanks for joining us today, Leigh. And then it kind of lost its way. It kind of sort of meandered through this radical, big set radical. So that's the song for taking effect on me. This mad guitar solo, and then sort of I expected something sung. I wanted like a sort of Portishead style sung piece in there, women sort of singing, or at least move back into the spoken word and finish what you were saying. Well, not that I could hear properly what you were saying in the first place, but make an attempt to finish that. It just rambled on for then sort of like another couple of minutes after that, and didn't really go anywhere, and that's where it lost it for me. Started off really well. It sounds like whoever was producing it sort of put a load of drum loops down and went, great, 5 minutes track, and got bored about halfway through and thought, okay.
All right. I appreciate that, Ian. Tom, your thoughts on number 3?
Well, at first I thought it wasn't really going to play back. There was quite a space between play and where the track came in. It was like it wasn't edited head on. So that kind of threw me a bit. The vocals were indistinguishable. They needed to be a lot more clarity. I wish I could have heard as much of the what they were saying as Ian did, because the effect, the closed mouth spoken word is very hard to understand. Again, too many effects. Cut it up a little bit. The chopped out vocals at the end, the glitched vocals with laid back glitching, it's, was too much. Could have just had a little bit of that and would have been fine. Again, like Ian said, come back in and finish what you're saying, or explain what you're saying. The vocals were too low in the mix to really understand. I think there should have been a little bit more emotion. Well, you see, not knowing what they were saying, leaves me kind of vacant on what kind of emotion should be there, but I definitely wanted to hear some emotion. Other than that, it's a decent ambient track, lots of loops, like Ian said, and I find myself hating myself for agreeing so much with Ian. And
I hate it too.
and happy Easter, everybody. This one's the bunny.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Yeah, happy Spring Festival, everyone.
Indeed, it is Easter. And let me introduce the track to you, gentlemen, and to our audience out there. That song was called Radical Blood by our very own Frozene, F-E. So, in fact, he's out in the chat room right now and has a bone to pick with Ian. What do you mean, she? That's what he said. So, you want to answer that? It sounded like a she to you in the vocal?
I only saw him from behind.
Okay.
It's my defense, Your Honor.
All right, and also he does state that only drum loops were used in the creation of that song and no drums were hurt. So, gentlemen, 2 questions for you as we go into the second round of business here. Number 1, of the 3 tracks you heard, radio, no radio. When I ask you that, or when I state that, I mean radio play on MSI radio, of course. So what are your thoughts on that for song number 1, 2, and 3?
I'm in a holiday mood, so I'll give them all a plus.
Yeah, happy Easter.
Leigh, what do you think?
It is Easter temporarily, so let's say yes to everybody. But I think yes to everybody because they're interesting tracks. Yeah, play them, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of creativity thrown into the sounds and productions and stuff. The first track was traditional bluesy and whatnot, but still, it was done well. I'm going to have a harder time trying to figure out which one to be the song of the week.
And that's the job you now have laid upon you. So figuring that out, go ahead and do the hard work now, gentlemen. Which song would you like as song of the week?
I went first last week.
I'm sitting on the fence in the middle of the road here, so
I'll say 2, mainly because everyone had their little problems and whatnot, but it was just interestingly done. A little long, but it was a little bit slick on the production. So I'm a sucker for slick production.
All right, so we have 1 vote for number 2. Leigh, Ian, what do you guys think?
Shall I do one, Ian?
Go on, Leigh.
This being my third go, it's kind of third time lucky, third time unlucky. I think they were all really interesting tracks this week, and I'm having a real tough time choosing. Personal taste, I'd say song 1. I suppose I do like blues and that kind of feel. 2 was probably the most interesting recording, and 3, the more I think about it, the more I liked it, really. Not just because there's a chap in the chat room about to throw internet darts at me if I don't say that. Is there such a thing as internet darts? If there's not, we should have an internet darts tournament immediately. Virtual darts, I don't know, something like that anyway.
Just trying to work out how that would happen.
We'll talk about that again. I'm going to copyright it first.
There you go.
Just for the roughness of the guitar playing and the performance on the vocal, I'll go for song 1.
All right, so we have a split vote between song 1 and 2. Ian, you're the deciding factor or the damning factor, and we'll make our audience select.
Go for 3, Ian. Go on.
What's the money, boys? How much you offering me to go on your side this week? Come on, I'm feeling in a nice mood.
I want you to go for 3. I think there should be. We should all have a vote on each song. They were good. They were good numbers. But I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Even though you just did.
Yeah, I couldn't. I know it sounded like I did, but I didn't. I'm off now.
In some ways, I do agree. I mean, they all do stand up on their own merits this week, and one was the roughest production, but a very well performed and a good bluesy sort of rootsy track. Number 2, as I said, really liked the song, didn't like the production, but it was well done, in the same breath. And number 3, it was dark and sleazy, and I liked that. Just felt that it sort of failed halfway through the track and didn't sort of pick up where it should have been. So I'm in the same position as the rest of the guys. Do you know what? I'm going to go with number 2. I think it's the one that sparked most interest in me this week, from the point of view of why haven't they done this with this track, rather than, this is a really bad track. I can't criticise it on the way it's been done, and it's just a personal opinion thing that I really don't like in it. So I'm going to go with number 2.
All right, well, there you have it then. Song number 2, City of Glass by KST1. It's going to be our song of the week this week on Music Scene Investigation. Leigh, thank you again for being with us. As always, we appreciate you coming on every time you do.
Well, thanks very much. I've had a smashing time again, and I say again, 3 really great tracks, really good stuff this week.
Yeah, it gets tougher and tougher to select on these tracks, in my opinion, and I don't know how you guys do it.
Isn't that great though? That the stuff is so good that it's hard to decide. That's the best reason of all.
Exactly. Like I say, I don't know how you guys do it, but I definitely appreciate the fact that you do it. And again, thanks for being here, Ian, Tom. Thanks as always. And to everybody out there in the chat room, thank you for being here as well. We hope to see you again next week on MSI, on Music Scene Investigation. We'll have to let you know who the guest is going to be unless Ian can pull a rabbit out of his hat.
Well, it was meant to be Leigh Heggarty.
Hello.
He's here tonight. Due to a few sort of diary woes on both sides, we managed to sort of reschedule to tonight and give Leigh his opportunity before next week, because you're rehearsing next week, aren't you, Leigh?
I am, although I could probably do it again if you want me to. Shameless self-promotion here. This is,
That's not what you said on the phone the other week. Well, that's really useful. Yeah.
And you believed me.
I've got this gig coming up with Florence and the Machine that I can't make, that I've got to rehearse really hard for. So
it's a rehearsal for Cool Britannia, actually. But yeah, I've got to.
Well, we'll definitely keep you posted on the website. You can head over to MusicSceneInvestigation.com to find out who our guest panelist will be next week, and I assure you we will have one. Otherwise, Ian will be doing double duty. So tune in again next. Yeah, you'll be a guest panelist as well. You'll have to wear 2 hats. So
you can use one of your other personalities, Ian.
Exactly.
I was just saying, time to get out the schizophrenia. Fantastic.
You've been waiting to do this for years, haven't you?
There you go. There you have it. So again, thanks for being here, everybody. We're going to play out with City of Glass, and we'll talk to you again next time right here on Music Scene Investigation.
became a black